Greetings and welcome back again. Today we're going to talk about pharmacovigilance in patient safety and the role of the pharmacist. And this is driven by the fact that recently, actually last week, we had the rollout of the pharmacovigilance electronic reporting system by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board in Kenya. And with this, the key thing for us is to understand then why do we have this pharmacovigilance system in the first place? Two, with the rollout of these new systems that are already now in place, for example, the online mobile applications, the USSD code that is *271#. How do we take advantage of them and how do we ensure that pharmacovigilance is actually mainstreamed in our communities? And these new systems that are being developed are going to serve communities and are also going to ensure that we protect our patients to ensure patient safety is advanced. And pharmacovigilance is the principle and the basis upon which we're going to do this. So when I looked at that particular advancement that we're seeing in the ecosystem, my call to all of us as pharmacists and pharmacy practitioners is to look at how do we improve access to quality healthcare services and employ pharmacovigilance as a principle in healthcare service delivery and to take advantage of these advances. We know there are stakeholders who have worked on these behind the scenes and their contribution is critical. And as much as their contribution is critical in putting these systems in place, the use and the implementation of the systems to ensure we safeguard patient health and public health interest is critical. So when we look at it from what pharmacovigilance is, we know that pharmacovigilance involves, it's a scientific principle generally, and it focuses on the detection, assessment, correction, and actually prevention of adverse events that can result from use of medicines and healthcare products, including vaccines. So we know in terms of delivery of healthcare services, we'll always be using some medicine somewhere. We'll be vaccinated at one point in time, even when you're born in the immunization program at childhood, we have them that have been vaccines that are administered. Then later on in life, as we continue, we have other medical devices. For example, if you're being injected, is the needle safe for you? What are the probable challenges that can come from there? So those are all moving around pharmacovigilance, and we need to be vigilant enough. The term vigilance means come from the vigilant. We need to be aware of the probable harm that can come, and we need to put in place risk management measures, the risk containment measures to ensure we don't cause harm. And in case there's any harm that arises, we should be able to detect it, assess it, report it, and actually intervene to prevent future occurrences of the same risk. And that is what we look at within the pharmacovigilance space. So when we look at it as a concept in patient safety, as I've mentioned, we use medicines, we use these products. Some of them might not be working well for some people, but might be working well for others. There are people who have concomitant use of the same drug. Let's say, for example, I'm using paracetamol and using another medicine that are interacting. And therefore, instead of getting relief as I hoped for, it might not happen. So how do we ensure we achieve that relief that we intend to? So how do we report such kind of a problem that comes? For example, we know metronidazole when used, it should not be used with alcohol. And that is one thing that we know. Even when you come to a pharmacy, when I'm dispensing medicines to you, I'll indicate to you that if because of the condition that you're having, we are prescribing this medicine, metronidazole will be given. And we urge you not to consume alcohol within the 1 week that you're using this medicine. Reason, there are adverse reactions, the side effects of the drug that can manifest when you're using alcohol. And we understand the scientific basis of that. And that is why we advise you. So in case any of these things happen, we need to be able to capture them. And when we look at pharmacovigilance in patient safety, we want medicines not to affect you negatively. We want you to get the benefits out of the medicine. Therefore, you need to get better. If you're using drug A and drug A is not getting you well, then that is a problem that we need to report and actually find a way. Because when we're talking about access to quality medicines, they should be effective, they should be affordable, and they actually of safe and of the right quality. So if they're not effective, that is already a problem in terms of the safety, and that will affect the patient well-being because they're not getting better. And the main aim of us in healthcare service delivery and pharmaceutical care is to ensure they are able to get the benefit and they're able to attain the positive health outcomes that we wish for. They get better as patients. So when we look at that, then the next bit would be why pharmacovigilance and what's the scope of it. I've mentioned that we look at it from detection, assessment, reporting, developing coping mechanisms, and ensuring that our system works to protect our patients from harmful effects of drugs, that is the adverse events, and even adverse incidents that might arise from use of some of the devices. For example, when I just mentioned the use of an injection needle, probably some of the needles have metals that are not safe for some people because of allergies that we have that are different for each of us. Can we report them so that we know there's this number of metals that can be used in making needles? Some of them are not safe, others are safe. Some of them have higher tendency of having allergic reactions to patients. And therefore, if we can weed all that kind of products in the market and have a select few, we'll have already prevented these probable allergic reactions. If that happens, that is a win for everyone. So then the next phase for us to look into is, after acknowledging what pharmacovigilance is, the place of it in patient safety, and what is the scope of how we can integrate it into our systems, we're going to look at how can pharmacists contribute to the realization of patient safety through the promotion of pharmacovigilance. And the reason of this, as I mentioned in the start, we have a pharmacovigilance electronic reporting system, PvERS, that has been put in place by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, and this is now going to help us in driving this agenda. So how do we promote it? In us promoting it, we have to acknowledge that there are different aspects and different mechanisms of capturing that information, because the first box is detection. Who detects adverse events? It can be the patient that is being treated. It can be the healthcare practitioner, let's say a nurse, a clinician, a physician, or even you as a pharmacist, or even the medical lab person at one point in time when they're taking, let's say, samples from a particular patient. They can identify any adverse event. So it has to be detected. Upon detection, there is assessment that needs to be done. Who will be doing the assessment of these particular adverse events? It can be you as a pharmacist looking at the literature available on that medicine and seeing the adverse events that are coming out, and also reporting and seeing how it can be improved. You can report to the pharmaceutical companies who have a responsibility to ensure these adverse events are not there, because they are the people who take responsibility for the product that they brought into the market. So you need to report. Can they assess those? The regulatory authority, that is why as Pharmacy and Poisons Board, there is a PV system that has been rolled out. And with that PV system, there's somebody mandated to ensure they safeguard public interest, the patient safety component, and therefore they have the responsibility to assess the magnitude of such problems. And if once they've established that, they can help us ensure such medicines are not being used by patients. We all know the case of thalidomide and how it was addressed and all that. So if we can go into that space as well from a regulatory standpoint, detection, assessment, then now designing interventions. What is our response mechanism? And I mentioned that pharmacovigilance is within the risk management system. So when we talk about risk management, we have prevention, mitigation, that is reduction, and actually avoidance, and ultimately transference as well. Who can take responsibility for such? And these are mechanisms that we need to look at. And if we know all the people who are stakeholders in that ecosystem, then we can now be able to see, as pharmacists, how do we come into the ecosystem? I remember earlier there's a video that I talked about the role of pharmacists in NGOs. And for that particular video, I was talking about how we transition it from just managing the supply component, but actually integrating patient safety as a critical pillar. Regulatory component, do we confirm the medicines are registered? Do we ensure the patients know in case there's an adverse event, how do they report? And that is now becoming the core of this particular session. So the first thing, there's a PV system that has been rolled out. For all these stakeholders, as we've mentioned, from patients, healthcare providers, that is nurses, clinicians, physicians, doctors, medical lab people, even nutritionists, to be able to know that there's a way to report, they need to be aware. And that awareness is our first role as pharmacovigilance specialists and pharmacists, because that is our forte, that is our strength. Let's create awareness about it. When patients come to you in the hospital, you tell them that in case of any side effects, any strange outcomes from the use of the medicine, they should be able to report it through the system? Or do you leave it to them that they might think of reporting or they might not? When they are not aware, they won't report. And the problem with such kind of incidences is they are not aware, therefore, that there's a reporting mechanism, they fail to report. And once they do fail to report, the chances are some of them will stop using the medicines. If I was using medicines that were helping me get better and I stop using them as a patient, then it means I'm not getting healthy. Have you fostered the aspect on patient safety? Definitely not. And that is going to affect our healthcare service delivery. So we need to drive awareness, public awareness, sensitization, so that people know the place of pharmacovigilance and how to drive pharmacovigilance as a component, as a principle by itself. Once we've known that bit, then now let's go to the next phase. Can we have tailored patient education on how do they do reporting? There's a PV system, yes, we know how to report with it. And the goodness of this now for me is the fact that there is a USSD code, the short messaging option, where you can use the *271# option. And once you do it, you enter your details, you go into the phases as will be guided by that messaging option. So you can give information without having to depend on internet availability, provided you have a SIM card line that is registered, you are able to communicate that. if we can educate people specifically on how to report, the reporting metrics, what key information do we need to capture? Which medicine were you using? What is your name? Which medicine were you using? For what indication? What side effects did you experience? Then once you've captured that, it makes it easier for somebody to intervene and see, this medicine is used for this, if this patient had this reaction, and how do we address it? So how do we report those? And if we can educate people as much as possible, they will be able to report when they have an experience, because nobody wants to get harmed by medicines. And if nobody wants to get harmed by medicines, then we have an opportunity to help them not to get harmed. And to help them not to get harmed means we make medicines available to them when and where they need them, and we make them be able to report such side effects. And that is through public awareness and sensitization, then tailored education with key deliverables, key achievables. We want them to know how to report. We want them to know what needs to be reported. We want them to be able to be stakeholders that in case of anything, they can engage in certain areas and even follow up on that measure. For example, you've reported, and when you go back to the hospital, the physician or the clinician or the pharmacist is actually recommending the same medicine that you reacted to. How do we help you in that? You need to be engaged. The other key thing, we talked about the critical role of other healthcare professionals in that dynamic, and therefore we need to have structured engagement. When we deal in the hospital wards, for example, in hospital pharmacies, we work within the pharmacy with some interaction with patients in the ward's clinical pharmacy. But beyond that, who administers the medicine? Oftentimes we have the clinicians, physicians, and the nurses. The bulk of that is done by nurses. Can we engage with them so that they're able to identify? Because if somebody is closer to the patient longer and doing almost everything with the patient, they can see any changes. They can get to relate with the patient at a personal level. Therefore, the patient is free to share more information. Then in that case, we can leverage on that particular trust, that particular connection and proximity to the patients to be able to capture this pharmacovigilance information. And that is a critical bit that we need to look at. How do we build that capability? How do we partner with them to help us in reporting these incidences? And once they report, how do we give them the assurance that we're making improvements? Because some of the times you'll find there is a flaw in our pharmaceutical supply chain. And therefore, that is why some not so quality medicine, the fake, counterfeit, and solid substances are getting into the hospital. And probably the nurse or the physician or the clinician might fear that me reporting an adverse event can make me appear in bad light to the authorities in that hospital, the management. And if that affects the management, chances are I lose my job. Nobody wants to lose their job. The aspect on human self-preservation plays. So how do we assure them that you reporting is not a crime? You reporting is not a bad thing. It is your obligation and your duty of service to the patients, because when we graduate from school, we actually take the Hippocratic Oath. And the real reason is we commit to serve patients through our vocation, through our professional practice, to be better people, to be stewards and the guardians of the patient well-being and safety. So that is the key bit that we have to look at. How do we work with them? And we need to structure those engagements with them. Next is to structure strategic partnerships with biopharmaceutical industry and companies. And the reason as to why I talk about this is because, one, these medicines, these medical devices, these vaccines that we're using that have the potential of having adverse events are developed by pharmaceutical companies. And in each company, there is a pharmacovigilance specialist. And nowadays we have them as the qualified persons for pharmacovigilance with key requirements that they have to attain in terms of academic education and the capability in terms of driving access. So on that account, then how do we drive that? We drive it by one, strategic partnership with them to be able to know, in case we identify problems, we'll be reporting to them so that they investigate. We have partnership where we share information with them, they share information with us, and we improve our system so that even when we have medicines that are available in the market, and there are some adverse events that have been noted, we also use that to inform our pharmacists, physicians, and clinicians through the structured engagements so that they look out for probability of such. And that gives addition to the data pool. With the data pool in terms of advancing research, we're ensuring safety and patient wellness in our ecosystem because we're dealing with the person producing it who has a responsibility of its care. And when we do that, we are partnering in the ecosystem and serving the ecosystem better. Finally, upon this reporting and all that and research and getting more insights, we need to strengthen our pharmacovigilance centers. We need to ensure our systems are robust and working. From case analysis, once they've been reported, do we analyze them? Once we've analyzed them, do we report to the respective entities? They're telling the biopharmaceutical companies, the regulatory authority, but they by themselves, knowing that we need to stop the uses of this medicine. Do we report to stakeholders? Drug A had a problem. It's still being bought by the government procurement system, being bought by the distributors and being distributed in the market. That is not supposed to be there. So do we communicate that so that there's a withdrawal mechanism or retrieval mechanism in the market? That is the reporting component. Do we investigate beyond just giving and issuing a declaration that they should be recalled from the market? Investigate, follow up, and get the information. And once that is done, we have to put in place corrective actions and preventive actions. That is the CAPA, corrective action, preventive action. And once we put them in place from our investigation and analysis, we now decide that this has to be implemented, and we have to monitor the implementation to ascertain that actually this is the problem we had, this is the recommendation in terms of addressing it, and this is how it should be implemented. Then now it has been implemented and we are getting better outcomes. If we are able to do that, that would be a win for all of us. And that would be the success that we all wish in terms of integrating and actually working with the stakeholders within the healthcare space and ensuring as we work together, we are addressing the needs in the society, we are serving our patients and ensuring that they trust us and we work together to improve the patient safety, improve public health interest, and ensure wellness and positive health outcomes are achieved for all wherever they are. And on this account, this is one of the key things that we are looking at doing within the African Pharmaceutical Network to work with strategic stakeholders and build capabilities. And when we build capabilities, we are able to achieve our common aspiration. And that common aspiration is to ensure patients have this access to safe, effective, quality healthcare products and technologies and pharmaceutical services where they need them and when they need them affordably. And most importantly, to ensure we safeguard the wellness of the patients, ensuring they're safe to use the medicines and they're using the right medicines for them. So if you feel you're keen to participate and actually collaborate with us in this account, we'll be more than glad to engage and see what would be the next phase of our work. Send us an email at africanpharmanetwork@gmail.com. If you do that, we'll find a way to engage as we move forward. If you found this video insightful, educative enough, and you feel there are insights that you'd be keen to explore again, please engage with us through the same email that I've mentioned. Other than that, subscribe to our channel, engage with us, get to learn together. Let's make our healthcare systems work for the betterment of all. Ultimately, please feel free to share the video and let's engage next Sunday. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day and week ahead.